Welcome. I thought it was time we did another one of my boring videos. This time I'm going to look at the Weber ICT carb as used on air-cooled Volkswagen engines. Now, this carburetor was from a company called Aircooled, and this is what they come like brand new, just outside the box. And what I like about these carbs is they're easy to set up and they're relatively cheap, I suppose, compared to any other sort of Weber carburetor. And they're great for smaller engines, 1600 and 1776, for example. Anyway, if you buy these carbs from Eurocarb, they will jet them exactly the way you want it. Now, I'm not going to go through jets, and I'm going to strip this carb down. If you're looking for advice on the size of jets that you need to run on various sizes of engines, I recommend that you have a look at the Way Out West Day website. I'll put the link in the description. Anyway, so these little carbs are great, but there's a few little things that you need to get right, and this video is going to look at those little details that other videos don't cover. So I thought I'd start with manifolds. So let's look at manifolds. Set the carb. Now this is your M8 manifold. That's one of the main choices. I've modified it, I'll come back to that. And this here is the CB Performance manifold. I prefer this manifold over that one. But they both have their pros and cons, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So in terms of using one of these manifolds, they're much shorter than the CB Performance one. And the quality of it isn't as good. So the last thing you want to do is put this straight on. I made a number of modifications to it. First of all, I've sanded the bottom flat using sandpaper on a sheet of glass until get it as smooth as possible so that it'll seal. That's the first thing. Also, you might find there's some benefit in just tidying up the bit in the middle between the two ports because it's a bit rough. And the third thing is this tube on the back here. That is for a balance pipe. For these to run smoothly idle, you really need a balance pipe. Now, they've designed it so you put the balance pipe here, you drill a hole for it there, but the problem with that is that's right where your spark plug lead's going to go, which is useless. So the alternative is to drill a hole here and use some epoxy GB weld to glue in a bit of balance pipe. That's 8mm. My preference is for 10mm because that's 10mm is what the Type 3 engine used with twin carbs. So anyway, it's not a bad manifold, but I've also had to, see that bit there, you can see I've sanded it flat. I also increased the clearance for the nuts to fit better so you can get a socket on it. I've done that both sides. So that's the MP manifold. The other manifold is the CB Performance one. Now this is a little bit better in terms of quality. I noticed the base is flat already, and that's great. But I did have to sand down where the nuts go to make that flat. I've also had to sand into the side of the manifold to increase the clearance for the nuts. The main benefit of it is it has got a fitting for a balance tube. There's a hole there tapped for a balance tube, and they've got two, so you can put one on one side and one on the other for the different sides of the engine. The main downside with this manifold is it's offset, which means that the port on the left has got further to travel than the one on the right. Now, in normal driving, that's not really going to make much difference. But if you're looking for all-out performance, then you'd be better off with the MP because it gives you a straight shot at both of the ports. So this is the one I prefer. Now, the other thing you can see is I've sanded it down here. When you go to fit these, they're tight. And they will just drop straight on here. But See, that's it down into place. Now the main problem you get is it's tight around the outer edge here, so I've had to take a file and sand and a grinder and just sand it down here. If you don't do that, there's a risk that it won't sit down properly on the cylinder head, which is no good. There's another thing I've done, which I'll just talk about now. The trouble with any of these sort of manifolds is that when you switch the engine off after it's got up to temperature, the heat will rise from the cylinder head into the manifold and up to the carburetor. And this means that hot starting is very tricky. The solution to that is to fit one of these. Well, this is one of the solutions. There's two solutions. This here is an insulating gasket, originally for a Type 3, fuel-injected Type 3. They're quite hard to find, but they're brilliant. They're also an excellent fit on the stock cylinder heads, as you can see. They don't interfere with the hole, and the same applies to this. And this manifold is good because the holes really line up beautifully. I've not had to port it. Although the head's been ported, I've not opened up the actual port itself. It fits straight on, now that I've clearanced it. Now what I prefer to do is to use nuts like this. This is a 13mm nut with an integrated washer, and as you can see, it's serrated, which means it gets a good bite on the aluminium. And because I've clearanced the manifold, the nut goes straight on, no problem. So get another one here for the other side. I'm not going to do it tight, I'll just get it on there. Give it a little turn just to finish it off. I won't bother doing both of them, I'll just tighten this up here so it's not going anywhere. Right, okay. Obviously you need the standard gasket that goes there. Now, if you can't find the insulator gasket, then you can buy one that sits here instead, which will work fine. It'll stop the heat getting up to your carburetor, but the problem with that is it doesn't stop the manifold heating up. And that's why I like these Type 3 ones. Like I said, a bit tricky to find. Now, once you've got the manifold all clearanced nicely and it sits down nicely, we'll just put on an old carburetor. You put your gasket on there normally. I don't have one to hand. I'll drop the carburetor on. Now, as you can see here, it is a sloppy fit. It can slide backwards and forwards like this. And what you want to do is make sure it's all the way in on the CB Performance manifolds. And you need, when you open the carburetor, you shouldn't see the manifold at all. Now, if I slide it all the way back the other way, that way, you'll see, I can't really see it very well, but basically it overlaps the hole a bit, so that's no good. So I find if I push it all the way in that way, there's no overlap, it's straight down and into the manifold. And then again, you can just put on the little serrated nuts, which will make it nice and tight, and you're not having to mess around with the washers. You just go straight on there. Let's just snug it up a bit. There we go. I won't bother with the other one. The other thing I've got here is the balance tube. It's kind of hard to see, but basically it goes on there. This is a 10mm internal diameter silicone tube. I would obviously put a clip on that, a hose clip. What I've done is I have drilled and put riv nuts onto the back of the case with some stainless steel hose clips just to hold it in place there, and the same on the other side. And the fuel line's the same. A clip there and a clip on top here. That way it's not going anywhere. Now, the most important thing with using fuel hose is to use a good quality one. This is Coline. And make sure when you push it on, make sure you use clips, but also try to avoid any tight bends. You want soft bends. These modern hoses, they do not like tight bends. They will split, particularly with the heat in the engine compartment. So try to have as soft a bend as possible. Well, that would slide on there, so that's not It's a little bit tighter than I would like, but I'll get away with that. Up on top here, we have got the T-piece. If we look round to the other side, you'll see it's a bit different. Okay, so what I've done here is I have made up a pipe because it would have had to have a very tight curve for the fuel line to come right over the top, and that will result in it splitting. So instead what I've done is I made up a metal pipe. We'll obviously get close clips here and here. That takes the tight radius, and then we can have a soft curve all the way up to the top there. Obviously there's the connecting tube between the two sides, the purpose of which is to give it a much smoother idle. The only other connection, obviously that's the fueling connection. The other connection of these carbs is this, which is the vacuum connection, and that should go to your distributor here if you're running a vacuum distributor. If not, you need to block it off. But the engine will run much better with the vacuum attachment. Now, obviously both carburetors have the vacuum attachment. So what you want to do is take a line off of that one and a line off that one. I will run them along the top. A T-piece in the middle, and then bring it down to this point here. And also you're best to fit a valve in it to kind of help it cancel out, because the pulses from side to side will disrupt the vacuum. If you use a little valve, it helps to smooth that out. You can buy those on eBay, and then they'll connect to here. And the last thing, this here's the fuel pressure regulator. These carburetors do not like high pressure. The fuel pump will be at the front of the car, and the fuel will come down round the back here up to the regulator, through the regulator to the T-piece, and then it splits to the two carburetors. I've mounted it here because it's much easier to get to, and I'll be able to adjust the pressure at the top. I'll temporarily have to fit a gauge though, so I'll remove this pipe here in order to do that, to set the pressure, which you do under this top bit there. So that's another little thing. And the last thing I want to talk about is the linkage. So this is the CSP linkage. This is fantastic. This is the best one you can get. The CSP linkage will be two rods, one will go to the right hand side and the other one goes to the left hand side. It comes with all the bars and the links and stuff, so it's relatively easy to set it up. There's good instructions, so I'm not going to go over that today. I might do that on another occasion. But in terms of, you know, the package, I know you can get an MP package with these carbs from different suppliers. The way I've gone is I've gone for separate carburetors. I bought brand new carburetors separate. If you buy them for Eurocarb, you can ask them to fit the jets you want. So when you get them, they're already set up properly. Having said that, I'll still strip and clean them out to make sure there's no swarf, and I'll set the height of the floats. Again, the Way Out Westy website gives you good information on how to do all that. So I'll strip them and clean them first before they go on. So separate carburetors. I bought the manifolds separately, and I've bought the linkage separately. Is this a cheaper method of doing it? No, definitely not cheaper. But is it the best way of doing it? I think so, because that way you get the best linkage, the best manifolds, and the correct jetted carbs, and you shouldn't have any problems with it. If you buy one of the other kits, what you'll find is the jets are all wrong. I have to strip them down anyway. It'll never run right unless you do that. And the other linkages, they work, but they're not that great. Whereas this linkage, this is the best. So that's the way I'm doing it. You might want to do it differently yourself, but that's how I'm going to set it up. And these are the little modifications that I've made to make it work really, really well the first time it runs. Because if you know, you really do know what you need to do, and it gives you better results. Okay, that's it. No idea when I'll do the next one, but hopefully you'll find it useful. Bye.